Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have these live streams regularly, and I also have videos that I post that are shorter. If you prefer shorter videos, you can go ahead to my video tab. If you prefer in-depth talk and analysis, then you've come to the right place. I will have a video after this live stream for you that elaborates further on the real intentions of the Israeli government when it comes to the Israelis who are kidnapped in Gaza. They say one thing, but their intentions are different, but some people say it as it is, and I will post a very important video after this live stream. But in this live stream, I wanted to talk to you about Yemen. So after Israel's big attack on Al-Hudaydah, Yemen said we're going to respond. And initially, we heard that Yemen said we will respond with all of the other resistance fronts. However, Hezbollah had a response on their own. Why is that? Well, firstly, Hezbollah's response is a first phase response, so that does not exclude the option of having another response with Yemen. That's number one. So that doesn't mean Yemen is lying or anything of the sort. Secondly, they said something recently that is very interesting, especially when it comes to the statement coming from the leader of Ansarullah, Abdul Malik al-Houthi. Abdul Malik al-Houthi said that we will surprise Israel by the land, like we surprised them in the sea. Now, you might think, okay, what are they going to do then? What, are they going to invade Israel? Well, they previously had military drills in Yemen where they were practicing and training on attacking Israeli settlements and Israeli posts. So they're very serious about having an attack on Israel, not just with their air force, with their drones, especially after the massive attack that they had in Tel Aviv. And of course, the other attacks through the Red Sea and their attacks on the Eilat port, the economic devastation on Israel is primarily from Yemen. This is what the main economic pressure that is on Israel is from Yemen, is from Ansarullah. Hezbollah, they applied pressure to take some sort of relief and take some energy of the catastrophe and the genocide in Gaza by exhausting over 50% of the Israeli army. They made a lot of impact when it comes to the northern part of Israel and also on the economy, but not to the extent of Ansarullah, because their attacks were outside of Israel primarily. So they attacked certain places in Israel, they attacked places in Israel with the Iraqi resistance, but their embargo that they're imposing on Israel has been very significant. And when it comes to their drills, they have been very serious. I mean, this is one of their recent military drills in Yemen, where everything was on land. So they were practicing things to do with their drones, some of their drones, attacking posts that are related to Israel. They were, one of those things, and getting out from tunnels and what have you. And these people are taking it seriously. Now, you might think, well, what are they going to do exactly? Well, the land, they're far away from Israel. How are they going to reach Israel? Well, they can reach Israel from multiple locations. Number one, they can reach Israel from Lebanon. Number two, they can reach Israel from Syria. And also they can reach Israel from certain locations where we haven't expected them before. So if they're saying we have surprises and they've proven that they surprised Israel previously, why should we think that they are unable to surprise Israel somewhere else? Now, of course, many people say, well, you said that you're going to retaliate. Why are you not retaliating yet? If you said you're going to have the response with the other resistance fronts, why have we not seen that? Well, that's to do with their calculations and their measurements. how they're calculating things, how they're measuring them. When it comes to Yemen, these people have shown time after time that they showed the most intense support for the Palestinian people, and they've suffered a lot for it. Firstly, you're talking about a country that's been in a devastating war that was imposed on them by Saudi Arabia, supported by many Western countries, and they faced a lot of problems. And also, you're talking about a country that has lots of economic issues as well. Yet, despite all of that, they took this position to show support for the Palestinian people and try and end the genocide in Gaza. And they've repeated time after time that we will stop all of our actions once Israel stops. The interesting thing here, by the way, is the fact, and these images are from their ground drills for those of you who are just joining the live stream, is the fact that they were offered certain things by the United States administration. The United States, firstly, after the attack started coming from Iraq, they had some sort of an understanding with Iran. They told Iran, listen, we can't handle the pressure. Can you do something about Iraq and our bases there in Iraq? We don't want problems. So the Iraqi side, they said, we are putting on hold our attacks on the bases inside of Iraq, the American bases inside of Iraq. Because when it comes to the Iraqi resistance, they have certain calculations that are also related to the American presence inside of Iraq. They have a disagreement to an extent with the government, although they coordinate with them. But they want the American troops out. The Iraqi government speaks with the American side regularly, but it doesn't seem like the American administration is totally understanding what it wants to do. They don't really understand what they want to do after this. And what they always tell the Iraqis is, well, look, if we withdraw from Iraq, then we might have to withdraw from Syria. And they don't know what's coming. But what we do know is that there is a genuine trend when it comes to the United States of ditching this policing status of the world. And it looks like we're going there slowly but surely. And at the time, when it comes to Iraq, they said we're going to stop our attacks on the American bases. So they stopped them. After they stopped them, they started having more coordinated attacks with Ansarullah in Yemen on Israel. And they started having attacks on strategic places in Israel, actually, with modified cruise missiles, with drones and what have you, on Israel. Meaning the United States was able to reach a deal with Iran and an understanding with Iran when it comes to Iraq. They tried to extend this understanding to Yemen, thinking that Iran holds all the keys to all of the problems. But what the United States administration fails to understand is that although some of these movements are supported by Iran, undeniably, they have their own decisions. They make their own decisions, and they make their decisions based on what's suitable for them. What is suitable for them? So when it comes to Yemen, they tried to reach a deal, it failed. They went to Ansarullah directly. They went to Ansarullah. That was approximately half a year ago, several months back. And they offered them a deal. What was the deal? The deal was, stop your attacks on Israel, and here's what you'll have. We will lift the sanctions. If you are proscribed anywhere as a baddie, we'll remove that. And we will lift the sanctions on you. So the concept of them, Ansarullah in Yemen, being them as they are, is not a problem to the US administration, like they did with Taliban before. They just want them to stop attacking Israel. All of that's attacking Israel. But they told them, no, we're not going to stop attacking Israel. We are going to continue. And they were offered a lot of money as well. Likewise, they tried to apply pressure on Hezbollah. not to the extent of perks that they tried to give Yemen. That didn't work with Hezbollah. And Yemen told them, no, we're continuing. And if you want a solution, all of these resistance was telling Israel, stop the war in Gaza. The tone that we had from Yemen is a little bit higher when it comes to stopping the war. Like Hezbollah, for example, will only say, stop the war in Gaza. Stop the genocide in Gaza. But the Yemeni Ansarullah, they're telling them, you need to stop the genocide and lift the siege. Which some analysts said that it means they might continue attacking Israel if they continue their embargo after a war stops. Something that is not very likely. So Israel is more likely, if we reach an all-out agreement, to have some aid, of course, going into Gaza and allowing Gaza to somewhat trade, although in a limited manner, not a full manner. But to Ansarullah, that was a very important thing. And this was the main thing that I wanted to share with you, really, is the fact that they said that we are preparing to surprise Israel by land like we surprised them by sea. And again, these images are for their armed forces practicing land attacks on Israel. That was several weeks back, if not over a month ago. That again confirm the fact that these people are indeed ready when it comes to Israel. Let me open the space up for all of the community. If you have any questions for me, by the way, if you wouldn't mind highlighting them, just so that we won't miss anything. Stephen, thank you so much for that. And welcome everyone joining in. Jimmy is saying the retaliation is happening, waiting is very powerful and costly. I think many people don't realize that. They do not understand that it is very powerful and it's devastating the Israeli economy. But again, you know, the people will tell you, well, they said they will. Where is it going? Why are they not retaliating? Not understanding the scale of repercussions when it comes to what? When it comes to the countries, because you're talking about, I mean, the United States didn't bring their aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines and all of their forces to the region for no reason. And all of these countries they need to be prepared, and they know their limits. It's not like you're talking about invincible powers and unlimited. No, they have a lot of calculations, and they also have calculations to do with the countries that might get involved. Like if we talk about Russia and China, for example, Russia and China might get involved. And if they want to get involved, then what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to have to be in line with them and be in line with everything that they have to do and everything they can do and the level that they want to participate in. Because don't forget that Russia is most likely to enter if something happens with Iran. China, although they're trying to play it as if, you know, we're not participating or anything, they will have a role too. Because to them, it's something very important. Iran, taking Iran down. Listen, if they take Iran as I'm talking about, not a conflict here and there, not a light several-day conflict, but if we talk about a big threat coming to Iran, then China, they would have to participate. They would have to do something. So to them, they have these calculations. They have internal calculations. They have external calculations, the longevity, the finance of it, what things will be attacked inside of their territories. All of these things are very important for them. And of course, they will take all of that into consideration when it comes. And look, another thing here, these people, they're seeing what's happening in Israel. They're seeing the level of devastation that is happening internally. Israel is eating itself from within. You have the government split, problems in the army, problems in the society, hundreds of thousands in the streets, strikes at a massive scale, all of that. And they're looking at them, knowing that Netanyahu wants to deviate the attention and put it somewhere else. and drag the Americans in, drag the Europeans in, telling them, no, it's your war. It's your war. Our war is your war. Why? Because we are what? We are defending you. We are defending you from these people, disregarding the fact that they are supremacist occupation oppressing the Palestinian people for so long, and they haven't bought anything but an extremely bad image about any country that is supporting them. Today, you've had an American killed in the West Bank, a bullet to the head. That's an assassination. Why? Because she was protesting to support farmers, support Palestinian farmers who are being attacked by who? By Israeli settlers. She was shot in the head. There was no way of protecting her. There was no way of doing anything. So they, of course, know what's happening, and again, they are threatening. And Jimmy Eyes, I've heard that our Navy in the region, we are 35 trillion in debt. Yeah, your Navy is in the region. When have they not been in the region? They've been in the region for a very long time. And the unfortunate thing is that this presence is not like a peacekeeping presence. You know, if it was a peacekeeping presence, you'd think, okay, well, great. Why not? America's trying to keep the peace in the region, but that's not the real reason that they're there. The reason that they're there is to support Israel. And of course, you've had wars in the Middle East, war after war. And now it's having all of that to support them again. And like you said, apart from the debt, listen, you know what? The debt, you can argue about the debt, because most of the debt is for China. And China and the US, they have this relation of we both need each other. I mean, the United States threatened like an international bully at one point, the administration, that we won't pay the debt. But they know, like China, we need to export. They have ports in the US. And but the main thing is really the money is being spent on what? The money is being spent on wars. It's not being spent on healthcare in the United States. It's not being spent on education in the US. It's not being spent on the people who are most in need, on homelessness. None of that, unfortunately. Maria, evening, Mahmoud. Not everybody can be bought. So much respect for Yemen. Such loyal friends who can totally. And these people, they also support with the population. Like when you talk about the population, they have massive support for the Palestinians on a regular basis. I mean, when you talk about Yemen, these people protest on a regular basis. Every single week, you have protests in Yemen in their millions. These people, and they don't stop. They continue to protest. So before Ansarullah started to participate and help, right, Gaza, they were protesting. After they started to conduct attacks on Israel, they continued to protest. They did not stop. These people do not stop. They continuously protest for the Palestinian people every single week. I mean, let me show you. This is one of their recent protests for Gaza. That's every weekend. Every weekend you see them in the streets. And they represent the population. My argument was that these people are more democratic than many countries. Why? Because they are submitting to the will of the people, right? They are supporting their people. They are representing what they are about. A successful animal shows, Brother Mahmoud, is greater is a potential going to happen, which includes taking over the Middle East. Well, they're planning to, aren't they? They're planning to. Netanyahu, whenever he shows a map, he continuously shows the map of Israel without the West Bank, or Israel included in the West Bank, and what have you. And whenever we see, what's his name? Smotrich, he will have the Greater Israel map. Greater Israel map. And, you know, countries surrounding them act like that's not happening. One of their ministers the other day, who is from the party of Itamar Ben Gvir, his name is Amichai Eliyahu, he was showing support for the reoccupation of Sinai. The reoccupation of Sinai at such an intense period with Egypt. A very, very intense period with Egypt. And it's as if, you know, it's nothing in Israel. And he was the same man, right? He was the same man who asked to nuke Gaza. He said we need to nuke Gaza. And then he had support from the US. What's his name? Lindsey Graham? Lindsey Graham was going out saying, yeah, of course, nuke Gaza. And he was legitimizing the nuclear attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And again, you have online figures like genocide, everything. But these people, not only that they are allowed on social media and mainstream media and everything. Other day, people in Israel, that's regular, that's every day. Oh yeah, we need to kill all of the Palestinian people regardless of anything. Regardless of anything. Look at that. And even when the Palestinian people are going through a genocide, they don't conduct less than 0.1% of what Israel does against the Palestinian civilians, against the Israeli civilians. As a matter of fact, they tell them your government is lying and this and that. And even those who they kidnapped, they told them like, we're doing this to get our prisoners back, and we consider you like visitors in Gaza. And of course, their responsibility towards them. On the other hand, you have people raping them. And the rapist, you saw him, he's on the Israeli news. A rapist, this man who raped a Palestinian, put an object back of the Palestinian prisoner. He is now a star in Israel. What does that tell you? That tells you that you're talking about a nation that firstly accepts the idea of rape and celebrates it. Not only that, justifies it from a religious perspective. You had Jewish scholars in Israel saying that, yeah, it's permissible by the religion. To rape a prisoner. He's on the headlines. He's on the headlines in Israel. Gullyberg, thank you for that. Mahmoud, I had a dream where you invited Gilad Erdan to your live stream, but YouTube quickly shut it due to the levels of false statements Erdan made. Oh, I think if Gilad Erdan went to a polygraph, right? I think the device would have burned to something. would have went on an overdrive. Hyper, ultra, super pathological liars. They lie more than they breathe. Englevich is saying, or Engelvich, Mahmoud, back in February, the OPCW, which were coerced by the US and Western imperialists to blame Syria for the chemical attack, included ISIS, who America funded, backed, was actually behind it. Oh, yes, listen, I mean, we spoke about this many times previously when it comes to ISIS and these movements. Firstly, Zbigniew Brzezinski, the head of the NSA at the time in the late 70s, he went to Afghanistan to support who? The Mujahideen. Why? Because they were fighting the Soviets. He went there in one of his famous speeches, you are fighting the war of God, you are God's people, go back there, take your lands, and this is a holy war, and you are the men of God. The men of God. The Mujahideen in Afghanistan, they were the men of God. Then you've had these movements. ISIS, who was the head of ISIS? he calls himself Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi maliciously. They named him Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi to give a bad name to the honorable first caliph Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. He was a special prisoner in the US prisons in Iraq. He was a special prisoner in the US prisons of Iraq, right? So, and this man, his name is actually, but they have it. I'm sure Wikipedia won't show the whole picture, but I just wanted to show you. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, look at him. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, what's his name? Ibrahim Awad Ibrahim al-Badri. Ibrahim Awad Ibrahim al-Badri. Why Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? To show you that this is the Islam, right? Look at the image of Islam. That's Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Let's see if they say anything about him being in the... Okay. Here we go. Al-Baghdadi was arrested by US forces in Iraq on the 2nd or 4th of Feb near Fallujah. Okay? He was detained in Abu Ghraib, in Kambuka, and what have you. As a civilian internee. Civilian internee. Civilian internee is not like what they usually tell you. This is like a special status. And all of a sudden, this special detainee, what's his name? Ibrahim Awad. Ibrahim Awad, calling himself Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. All of a sudden, what happens to him? He established, he escapes from prison, from a really highly protected place. You know, you have people, if you have innocent people in Abu Ghraib for 2 decades now. How did this man, and other prisons too, how did he go? Okay, he went out. All of a sudden, ISIS, all of a sudden they occupy territories and funding, and all of a sudden some of the Arab states, they support them. Some Arab states to call, yeah, go fight. Go fight with ISIS. The Arab states on the what? On the American side, in what I like to call the American jihad. They're quick to call people, go and fight, and all of a sudden we're seeing these people allowed to go and fight for this organ. What's the deal? Why are they so, very big reach? Only then we start having what? Evidence that these people are linked with who? With the CIA, with the MI6, with the Mossad intelligence agencies. They know about them, operatives with them. Well, how did that happen? How did that happen? Well, clearly they had a plan. Firstly, it works in line with their general theme. The Muslims are the bad guys, of course, and look at what they're doing, and this is the image of Islam. Then using that to destroy countries internally. Regardless of who is, by the way, leading the country. These people, they like to destroy and have inner conflict in countries so that they can weaken them. And they've been doing that with Syria. They've been doing that with other countries too. And in Syria, what do? They kill people from the Palestinian resistance in Syria. Where do they attack? Innocent people in Iran, innocent people in Oman. They kill innocent people everywhere. And most of their victims are Muslims. They kill everything. Why? To spread an ideology and impose their will. Remind you of someone? Israel. It reminds you of Israel. They are the version of ISIS. They are that version of ISIS. So it's not surprising. It isn't surprising. And the only thing that prevented that campaign from happening, by the way, in Syria was Russian intervention. Of course, other things. Russia said that because the NATO was about to be deployed. Why? What was the reasoning at the time of the US and the NATO? Innocent people are being killed by the Syrian government. Oh, so all of a sudden you're concerned about innocent people being killed by the Syrian government? So you do care about innocent people dying. Okay. Well, what about the Palestinian people that have been dying for 70 years? Well, okay, less than 70 years at the time, 65 years, 63 years. Oh, no, you know. No, but Syria, yes. Oh, and actions and attacks. And that's why, you know, we always say whenever you see these countries, these genocidal Zionist countries supporting people somewhere, question why are they supporting them? Why are they supporting them? Is their support based on actual facts? If there is an element of truth to it, is it to the extent that they portray it in? Right? It's not about whole denial, but definitely not whole acceptance. Why? Because clearly there's a problem. Look at what's happening now. They support, for example, the Ukrainian people. They tell you we support the Ukrainian people. They don't support the Ukrainian people. They support a puppet in Ukraine implementing a strategy for the US and NATO. They wouldn't care less about the Ukrainian people. From their perspective, the Ukrainian people can die in wars from here up until 2050, right? But they're saying we support the Ukrainian people. At the same time, Israel has the right to defend itself from ants in Gaza, and everyone is collateral damage, right? Sylvestra, what is behind this deep devotion of dear Yemeni people towards Palestinians, two of the most greatest nations? Thank you, Mahmoud, for keeping us awake every night. Actually, I apologize for keeping you awake every night. I should apologize to myself because I need to get better sleep. My sleep patterns are awful lately. So sorry for keeping you awake. But the live streams for me are most suitable in the evening, unfortunately. And you're welcome. But with regards to Yemen, listen, certain people, certain nations, and again, that doesn't include, of course, everyone and everything, but some nations, they have and show more honorable values than others, right? And the Yemeni people have been known from a very long time ago to be people of morals. Many of them. Again, we're going to say like everyone. There's no such thing. No one nation is the greatest nation on earth, and what have you. But you know people by what? By their actions. You know. We have a saying in Arabic: people, you cannot consume people, as in you can't eat people, right? You consume what? Their actions. You see their actions. So you see that from these people, and they've been like that for a very long time. But look again, I mean, when you talk about, okay, so the biggest protests are in Yemen, in the Arab world. Of course, all our other Arab nations support the Palestinian people and injustice against, and they refuse the injustice against them. But look also at the protests globally. Look at the people globally in many countries, despite state tyranny, despite tyrannical measures and the misinformation and intimidation going on against them. So, yeah, these people, they've been known from history. And again, how we view them now is by their actions. And likewise with many people across the world. I mean, you talk about that in Western countries, in Europe, although, look, some countries have more harsh measures, right? Than other countries in Europe, in terms of like protesting and saying and speaking and what have you. Dean, thank you so much for that, my friend. Much appreciated. And again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Let's go to your next question. Oh, Jimmy, you're saying American with no healthcare. I live in RV, but it's okay because when all hell breaks loose, I'm mostly off the grid already. There you go. You're protected, my friend. You're protected. But yeah, trillions for all of that. But Listen, my argument is, even when I wrote my book about the one-state solution, I had a chapter about the military-industrial complex. And my argument for the military-industrial complex was these people create wars to profit. So there are people who are profiteering from killing. And I was trying to have an argument how to counter that, because it's difficult to end an industry where lots of people are making money off it. I'm like, okay, well, how about you still spend money, but have some sort of a conversion when it comes to the military industrial complex, and make it, I don't know, space exploration, right? Or God forbid, support charitable things across the world, really, people who are starving to death. And how about you start at home as well? So it doesn't mean you have to lift off everything, but the problem is these people will create wars and make excuses for wars to spend that money and make that money. If you look at it from an economic perspective, when you look at a soldier, count the money, the uniform, the helmet, the weapons. You're talking about 10K walking in many cases, let alone the helmets of the pilots. One helmet in 1 million and ridiculous stuff like that. Yeah, trillions of money being spent. For what? For what? So these people are interested in continuing this recklessness and feed the wars globally. And the problem is they leave other nations with no other way but, of course, to resist that. Why? Because they'll tell you, well, if you don't listen to us, then we will kill you or occupy your country. Baron, thank you so much for your super. He said, what happens to Gaza people and their lands? Can they not let Israelis to steal it? No, why should they let Israelis steal it? So they are, of course, there. They are defending themselves, of course. And many of them refuse to leave. Why? Because they know that most of them are refugees, by the way. So before the 7th of October, the percentage of refugees in Gaza was 73% of the whole population. So out of 2.1, 2.2 million, talking about over 1.67 million refugees from where? From historical Palestine, what is called now Israel. Why are they refugees? Because Israel expelled them, does not allow them to go back to their homes. And now they made most of them refugees again, internal refugees, in the hope that they would expel them. Of course, that didn't work. They're still trying to. And they even used to call it, like ministers in the government used to call this is the 2023 Nakba, or catastrophe, in relation to the 1948 Nakba, or catastrophe, that the Palestinians call the occupation of Palestine, the establishment of Israel in 1948. But now you're not talking about that time. You're talking about a period where people are more aware. They are not easily fooled. And they have the experience as well. They have the experience. Chris, the greatest threat to the minds in the West is the media. You hear the Zionist message on the lips of people I know, as if the deep-seated anti-Arab notion were the reality. Yeah. And many people warned from the media from a very long time ago, but unfortunately, many people are still fooled by the media, because it's their tool of control. It's their tool of control to the people, right? So, do you remember Plato's cave, right? Where you have this is something from a very long time. How people will scare you with a certain thing, and only after you see who's fooling you will you go out to the real world. This is true to a very large extent. True to a very large extent, because they are not there to enlighten you. They are there to control you. The government wants people who are quiet, who are supporting artificially generated causes that are in line with the powers at the top so that they don't cause them a headache. So they'll come up with a few nice, causes and tell you, hello, people, support this cause. Why? Because it's good, because we told you so. Because this is bad and that's good, so do that. And all of a sudden, the people start sympathizing and, supporting causes and fighting for them. But when it comes to real causes, and of course that's there to deviate from genuine day-to-day matters of the ordinary population, and when it comes to things that are serious, things to do with justice and social justice, things to do with genocide, like what's happening in Gaza, no. And what's the first thing that they do, by the way? They don't show it. The first thing they do is they don't show it. So they treat it as if it doesn't exist. And that's one of the biggest things. That's one of their biggest PowerPoints. That, well, we're not talking about it, so there's nothing. So whenever an Israeli dies or an Israeli injured, whatever, it's there in the headlines. Whenever there's a lie coming out from the Israeli government, it's plastered over mainstream media, lies. But when thousands are killed every single day in Gaza, you don't see that plastered, as if nothing is happening. So it's poison. It's ongoing poison. Dean, thank you again. Do you see a false flag attack on America on a scale of 9/11 to bring them into a regional war with Hezbollah in Iran? I think that the United States would find it difficult to conduct a very large-scale false flag attack, let alone at the scale of 9/11. I mean, 9/11 was the biggest false flag in history. It's such a large-scale event. But I think that they would struggle because, listen, many people didn't buy it from 2001, and you didn't have social media, you didn't have a lot of internet and people talking. But even at the time, like there were polls from New York at the time where half of the population did not believe that this is the official narrative, what the government is telling us. Imagine now when everyone knows how much the media is lying to them, and the United States coming and trying to, what they're trying are test balloons. What are the test balloons? Claims like Donald Trump saying that it's, or entertaining the notions and claims that Iran is behind his assassination attempt. What is that? You saw the man who supposedly tried to assassinate you. That's assuming that the whole assassination attempt is totally accurate and nothing is in question, it's 100% genuine. Because some people dispute that. But where did you bring Iran from? Where did you bring them from? And plus, why, and that's again for people who support Trump, why did you destroy the agreement completely that the previous administration had with Iran? That could actually bring some sort of stability. For the sake of who? For the sake of the United States? No, it was for the sake of Israel. Trump is bought by the people who support him. The Edelsons support him in 2016. The Edelsons support him now. The Zionist lobby supports him now like they did back then. And this man serves them at the end of the day. And it's not surprising. But I think that they'd find it difficult coming with something at a 9/11 scale. Again, it's not impossible. These people, see what they do. So killing their own people for certain things. And again, you're talking about people who didn't mind killing Americans in the Iraq and Afghanistan war for the sake of their agenda and profiteering from the wars, by the way. Some people were clear about that. I remember Aaron Russo at the time, he spoke with one of these people who told them, what's the cost of 10 or 15 American soldiers if we are taking all of the oil of Iraq? No problem. No problem. Bad thing too. ISIS were apparently mostly Mossad agents, many of them. Many of them Mossad agents. And Israel is very known for having, they have specific groups called the kind of Arabizers, Mistarevim they call them. These people look like Arabs, speak Arabic fluently, but they are there to infiltrate and cause problems. And they conducted lots of terror, portraying to be Arabs, including against the King David Hotel that had the headquarters of the British Mandate at the time. They killed dozens of British troops, and over 93 people were killed at the time. They destroyed a whole quarter of the building. Innocent people. And how did they get in? They were disguised as Arabs delivering milk. Arabs delivering milk, going to the kitchen, and all of the milk cans or the things that they had the milk in had explosives to blame it on the Arabs. Little they knew that they would be found out. And ISIS, again, that exists. And you saw it, but they did it in Libya too. The Galilee technical question: the Houthis are 1,000 kilometers plus away from the Zionist land. How will they surprise on the land if they can only reach from air and sea? Approximately 1,600 or 1,900 kilometers. It would be through the lands that they can go through, like Lebanon. They can go through Lebanon, they can go through Syria. They can surprise us through certain areas of Jordan. They can go from sea, then land. They have options. Listen, there was a journalist in Lebanon the other day who said that Hezbollah fighters invaded Israel and went back without Israel knowing. Israel is more exposed than many people think. And of course, we've had lots of land invasions during the Al-Aqsa flood from Palestinian movements in Lebanon and from people Israel doesn't know. Israel tried to censor lots of these things, but that happens. And if they want to do it at a large scale, then they can do it. They want to. The question is, what does he mean by that? What does he mean by that? But they are capable. Donald Lawson, why do we keep hearing about weapons coming in via Egypt? Well, are they? I have watched every single resistance video. Almost all weapons used are indigenous. Yes, they produce most of them. The resistance in Gaza, they produce most of them. The armed resistance, they produce most of them. But they do definitely have things going to Gaza. Now, lots of the talk is about Egypt. There were tunnels of Egypt. Egypt officially said that we destroyed all of the tunnels to Gaza. That was back in 2013. Did they destroy everything or did they not destroy everything? Clearly, there are certain tunnels. Is Egypt aware of them or not aware of them? Or aware of them and pretending like they are not aware of them? These are questions. Now, I'm sure that the relevant sides in each of these countries, they know what's happening. But don't forget that these, Israel in particular, and then followed by the countries that support it, they want to blame it on everyone else but Israel. We have a problem here. The problem here is not how the Palestinians get weapons. The Palestinians have a right to get weapons everywhere. Why? Because they are occupied people who deserve and have a right to resist, including by armed resistance. Don't fool people to try and make it out as if they're not entitled to. Why? Because they always tell you Israel has the right to defend itself, but they'll never say the Palestinians have a right to defend themselves. But they'll say that about Ukraine, and they will support the Ukrainian army, not only with missiles and with F-16s. Well, what's difference from the occupation of Russia in Ukraine, the Israeli occupation of Palestine? Why don't you send your F-16s to the people in Gaza? They are facing occupation. If we are consistent with the basis that we establish our argument on, right? Then, well, they're facing occupation. Gaza is facing occupation. Why do you support Ukraine and you don't support Gaza? They recruit people and try and convince people to go and fight in America, in the UK, and other European capitals from all across the world, and they'll give them money, and it's legit. It's legit. But a 70-year-old protesting for Palestine is a criminal. What is that? Moral inconsistency. If you were consistent with your values, with what you believe in, then what? People under occupation. I support everyone under occupation, regardless of who they are and where they are. Isn't that right? But of course, that they don't. So all of this talk about where the Palestinian people are getting their weapons from, it's to deviate from the problem. What's the problem? Zionist occupation, Zionist apartheid, Zionist genocide. That's the problem. The problem is not the Palestinians fighting. That's normal. That's human nature. That's protected by international law, by the biggest legal institutions in the world. Protected right to defend yourself by any means necessary. So that's not the argument. They're entitled to get everything they need under the ground and over the ground. They are people under occupation. That is deviating from the root cause of the problem. What's the root cause of the problem? The Zionist genocide and infanticide and barbarism and racism and occupation. That's the problem. Let's not forget that. So whenever anyone says anything about where they get, it doesn't matter where they get it from. It doesn't matter. And these people, they're entitled to defend themselves. Who's gonna give child killers a headache in Gaza? These troops who go and shoot children for fun in Gaza and steal things and record themselves while they do that, right? And rape people? Or do you want the Palestinian people to be defenseless? This is what I used to say in the beginning of this war, by the way. The whole argument is that, okay, Israel has the right to defend itself. Well, the Palestinians, oh no, why? Oh, because they are terrorists. Who said they're terrorists? The biggest terrorists in the world said that. The biggest criminals, the biggest genocidal maniacs in the world say that. Why? So that they can remove the justification of people under occupation to fight in accordance with international law. There are UN resolutions protecting the right of the Palestinian people to fight Israel and calling for nations to support them, condemning countries who don't. Do you know that? That's a resolution from the first Intifada. They were hailing the first Intifada, the uprising of the Palestinian people, because they are under occupation and they have been under threat or killing or all of that. And they call for all countries to support them with whatever they can. But no, they're bad. So we can't support them. Why? Because, our little spoilt brat is there, Israel. So it doesn't matter where they get it from. It's none of anyone's business. Why? Because they have a right to defend themselves. The main thing is the Zionist terror, the real terror, not the fake facade. That's fake what they tell you. Again, brainwashing people to deviate from the root cause of the problem, which is racism, occupation, and genocide happening against the Palestinian people. And also that's a malicious attempt against Egypt. Don't underestimate that. Because their plan, like we spoke about it yesterday, is to take control over Egypt. They have Egypt in their minds. They are planning, and they still have plans to occupy Sinai. Because don't forget, if they implemented the plan of expulsion initially and ethnic cleansing, they would have been in Sinai. Let's not forget that. Marvin, were 6 hostages killed by IDF bombs? Of course, I say Hamas shot them. I think IDF found them dead and pumped bullets in all courses of play Hamas. Oh yeah, they do that, Israel. Of course they did. Israel killed over a third of their people in Gaza. We speak about it all the time. Israel not only conducted the massacres on the 7th of October of civilians, Hamas mainly targeted the army. They not only they committed these massacres against their people as confirmed by Israelis, they started targeting every single Israeli in Gaza. And now all of the videos of the Israelis who are in Gaza, we were bombed, the Palestinian fighters were moving us from one place to another to protect us. Noa Argamani, who we spoke about a couple of days ago, said the same thing. I was wounded. I'm not going to be a victim of the media, she said. Don't say that the Palestinians beat me. I was bruised all across of my body because a wall fell down on me from an IDF strike. Meaning they knew where they were and they targeted them. An Israeli mother of a soldier in Gaza, she went mad after she insisted on an investigation how her son was killed, and they found out that it was from a gas bomb that Israel threw in a tunnel because they wanted to target a Palestinian figure in the armed resistance. And she had written something on his grave. And at the time, one woman from the defense minister's office, or the Shabak office at the time, went and took the note out, and she was monitoring her. She said, "Why did you go and take it? That's my son's grave." Because she wrote, your government let you down, your state killed you, they betrayed you, they this and they that. And before that, the Israeli member of the war cabinet at the time, Gadi Eisenkot, said that if we are targeting a figure in Hamas, for example, and we find out that there is an Israeli with them, then we will have to make a heartbreaking decision, meaning we will kill the Israeli. What is that? That's a Hannibal directive. This is a death cult, a genocidal satanic death cult. That's what they do. They don't care about their people. And I have a video after this live stream. You will see some people who are speaking about it even more clearly. Tori saying even if Israel show internal turmoil, all factions are fascists and they're genocidal. The ICJ scooped it. What are the likelihood that any international institution would make them pay for their crimes? The harsh truth is that, and the bitter truth is that, no international institution can make them pay for their prices, let alone stopping them. That's the most important thing. Before paying for their crimes, stopping them. No international institution is able to stop them. Not even a UN Security Council resolution pushed by the United States of America. And why is that? It's because the international institutions are nothing. That's why. Nothing is implemented from international institutions. The international institutions are primarily controlled by the United States of America to be the soft power of the United States of America, its administration, and to be implemented on the countries that they want to implement it against, not on countries they don't want to implement it against. How many resolutions are there in the United Nations calling for a Palestinian statehood, for the Palestinian refugees to return to modern-day Israel, supporting the Palestinian resistance, condemning Israel, going against Israel? But the US, they used half of their vetoes to stop anything against Israel. So that's the harsh truth. We live in a world that is ruled by power. It's an unfortunate state for humanity that the world is ruled by power, because we have the capacity to live in a world that is not ruled by power. But the people in power, the elite, they are hell-bent in continuing to impose their will by force. Either you submit to everything that we want economically, strategically, geopolitically, militarily, or face wars and death and destruction and coups and delegitimization and being labeled as a terrorist and then. That's how the United States operates. And then they act like they are the international community, who the US and the EU, they start acting like we are the international community. Like when they talk about Palestine, for example, oh, the international community. What international community? The international community support the Palestinian people and their right to liberate their lands and their rights for equality. But they will talk and pretend like they are the international community. A couple of elites in Washington, London, maybe, but primarily in the US, really, because the EU, what's the EU really? They are puppets for the empire. The EU states are puppets of the United States. After World War II, the United States called all the shots. The United States can do whatever the hell it wants in Europe, even if it's against the will of the European population. Hell, everything that they're doing with Russia, it's against the will of the European population. That's why they generated this artificial sympathies for people to support Ukraine and kind of justify everything, not looking at the bigger picture and what they're actually doing. Bombing the Nord Stream 2, your energy prices hiking up to the sky, and you're barely making it, making ends meet. Ooh, what's that? What is that for? How did that happen? But did it just happen? It happened because your government did certain things to make that happen. That's why. So that won't stop them. But what the international institutions doing, what the ICJ is doing, is making it difficult for Israel to get everything it wants easily. So you will have countries who have some sort of respect for international law showing more reluctance when it comes to supporting them and arming them and dealing with these and that institution in Israel. That's what it's doing. So it's not that, it's totally, completely pointless. No, there are certain things, but not to a level where they can stop the genocide in Gaza, but to levels where they can make life a bit more difficult for Israel. Yeah, Marvin, thank you so much for that. Couple of shekels, but these show dollar signs. Thank you. Mahib Salam Mahmoud, what's the purpose of ceasefire stages? I'm suspicious and worried that after the first phase, freeing most hostages, the genocide will just continue and Israel will return. Well, your suspicion is very on point. Why? Because we had reports from Israel saying that they were only interested in the first phase. That's why Hamas are so fierce when it comes to sticking to their conditions, because they know they are talking about treacherous, backstabbing liars in the form of Israel and the United States, who don't respect treaties and agreements. That's why they constantly seek reassurances and confirmations that we were going to have to continue the ceasefire after phase one. And that's why there's a lot of talk about who's to be released and not released in phase one, so that Israel wouldn't say, okay, well, we released most of them, let the rest die, because we don't have a problem with the concept of Israel is dying. Hell, we kill them anyway. So that's not a problem. If Israel if there was a building in Gaza with all of the Israelis inside it, Israel would have bombed it from a long time ago. And thinking that they would end the problem. Again, stupidity from Israel. So that's why Hamas are seeking guarantees, and that even led to President Biden himself saying that we will have a continued ceasefire even if no agreement is reached during phase one on phase two. Whose demand was that? Hamas's demand. Do you understand? And again, you're not talking about an Israeli side that's showing genuine intention of having a ceasefire. They're constantly delaying it. Now, the United States supposedly trying to come up with a magic formula that everyone will agree upon. We still haven't seen that. But Hamas and the Palestinian side, because Hamas is, don't forget, they are negotiating on behalf of all of the Palestinian movements with them. They are very careful when it comes to what? When it comes to accepting a ceasefire. And that's why we're having all of this talk about the Philadelphia corridor. That's one of the reasons why. Because Israel showed willingness to accept a ceasefire. The same ceasefire that Hamas already accepted. Why all of a sudden? Because then they were controlling the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim line. And then Hamas told the mediators, we insist on having the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim line in writing. And now they have a problem. Meaning Israel would have accepted a ceasefire and remained in the Philadelphia corridor, saying that we will leave, but then de facto keep their troops there. Why? Because to them, that Netzarim and Philadelphia were not included in the initial draft. So Hamas were awake to them because they know how much how much they lie, right? And of course, when you talk about the mediators and the US, they just want to get a deal and get it over and done with. The US, of course, is Israel. It's not like they're a genuine mediator. But that's why we're seeing this delay. Because Hamas showed leniency. Don't forget, like this phase and the withdrawal and the gradual withdrawal and they showed leniency, but not with core things that they consider to be red lines. John Storm, thank you so much for your super. He said, are there any updates about the potential war of Egypt, Somalia, and Ethiopia? Well, Ethiopia doesn't like what Egypt is doing in terms of its support for Somalia. But I think they are not interested in an all-out war. I don't think they're interested. I think they're trying to contain it as much as possible. Things have been heated for a very long time between Egypt and Ethiopia, especially to do with the Nile, of course, and the dam in Ethiopia. But we haven't seen signs that it's looking like it's going to completely break out. And we've seen tensions before, and we've seen them de-escalate. We've had very militant statements coming out from both countries, but they ended up with visits from the presidents. But we haven't seen any sign that it's going to completely explode. Then again, thank you so much, John, for your super. And also Mr. Kana. Yemen is true brothers and friends of Palestinians. Hope they value this. Oh, they do. Of course they do. and Dennis as well, thank you so much, my friend, much appreciated. Kate Mahmoud, will you take your hat off, nominate Nobel Peace Prize to South African Houthis for rising up to prevent genocide on Palestinians by axis of evil nations, the Western Arab nations? I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of, because I'm in no position to, of course, nominate. I say what I have to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of years down the line, they will give a Nobel Peace Prize to Yahya Sinwar. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. Why? Because Nelson Mandela was a terrorist, right? He was a big terrorist, and he had a terrorist organization, and then he later had a peace. Well, why? Because of his fight against apartheid. And all of a sudden, all of the Western leaders love him and welcome and come. And Margaret Thatcher, a couple of months after she was calling him a terrorist and labeling him as such, was welcoming him in 10 Downing Street. Hypocrisy at its highest levels. So I wouldn't be surprised if they give a Nobel Peace Prize to Hamas, like they did with ANC and Nelson Mandela. You see, they change everything whenever they like and whenever it suits them. It's not like it's based on something genuine. Marvin is saying, you hear that IDF made General Tamir Yadai, head of the ground forces, resign. Yes, we spoke about him 2 days ago, and I spoke about the continued resignation. So far you've had the resignation of the top figure in the West Bank. You've had the resignation of the Gaza division, which is one of the most important divisions, resigning during the war. And look how important it is during the war. A top figure in the military intelligence directorate resigning. All of the team of Daniel Hagari, the IDF spokesperson, resigned. These resignations, that's not something common in war. You don't do that. Some people force presidents or heads of the state, they will force someone to stay because it's during a war. You don't do that. These are more signs of dissatisfaction from what's happening and a massive show of disapproval, although they won't say it. They say it's for personal reasons, for this and that. But by the way, not all of them said it was for personal reasons. The Daniel Hagari team said that the army is being, there is a lot of political influence on the army. And there are people in the military establishment in Israel who view the army as an establishment entity that shouldn't be politically motivated, but they are seeing the contrary. That's a massive dig at primarily Benjamin Netanyahu. And it's a massive show of weakness and disunity internally in Israel. And again, these things, you don't hear many people talk on about that. And they look at the split and this and that. They don't say about that. How many people disapprove? But the fact that you have the head of the ground forces resigning, that's a massive blow, and a massive sign of disapproval. Laith Maruf reported that was from Sherry, that Israel plans to withdraw residency cards from 500,000 West Bank Palestinians living in Jordan who refuse Jordanian citizenship. Your thought? Nothing would surprise me when it comes to Israel. Firstly, you have the resident. Firstly, this is how complicated it is. The Palestinians living inside of Israel, they have an Israeli residentship, but are living as Class Z, right? Because Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people. Then you have the West Bank under West Bank Authority, Gazans under the Gaza Authority, and East Jerusalem with a limited Israeli residency status, not full Israeli citizenship. So it's like a very niche type of apartheid. They threaten the ones in Jerusalem all the time. That's why they don't give them citizenship, because also they don't want their political participation too, and they don't want them to influence politics. And when it comes to Jordan, I won't be surprised they're talking about outright plans to expel populations in Gaza and the West Bank. So it's not surprising. This is how this country exists. On expelling people. Because think about it, the solution is simple. Everyone equal rights. Everyone equal rights. No, they will drag anyone who claims to be Jewish from Honolulu and from any part of the world, and Africa and Europe, who have no connection with Palestine. Oh, here you go, Israeli citizenship, and come join the army, and. But the Palestinians who were expelled from their homes in 1948 and 1967, and internal refugees who are not allowed to go back to their villages and rebuild them. All of that is the core root of this apartheid entity. So nothing would surprise us if they want to do something with the Palestinians in Jordan, because they are being vocal. They are being vocal and blatant about committing a genocide and having settlements in Gaza. Lebanese Tips podcast. What action should Lebanon take when Israel jets using white phosphorus? Why does Hezbollah not react? Well, they have used phosphorus many times, and Hezbollah always reacts. Hezbollah is constantly reacting every single day. Today, they reached a new settlement in Israel. Hezbollah, they always react. Hezbollah initiated the party, initiated participating and accepted the call of the Palestinian resistance to join Al-Aqsa flood. And ever since then, they have been active every single day as a supporting front. So they have white phosphorus, but again, what you need to understand about Hezbollah is that they are extremely calculated. They are not reckless. They are very strategic. And they're very methodical when they approach targeting Israel. Military places, initially they'll start up with a certain level, certain kilometer range. Israel escalates, they'll escalate further. If they want to something, they will calculate everything not to lead to an all-out war on Lebanon. And 1 year on, they haven't brought an all-out war on Lebanon, despite all of these threats and warnings, and then we're going to attack you, and if you don't stop, we'll do this and that. And they haven't stopped. And they continue to target Israel in support and solidarity for the Palestinian people facing a genocide in Gaza. But the most shameful thing here is that Israel can use these illegal weapons, and Western mainstream media and Western governments are sitting there, going to warn Hezbollah and going to warn the Palestinians. It's, one example is like with what's happening in Palestine is like you're seeing a child being gang raped, and then the Western leaders are observing and trying to prevent everyone from helping her. As harsh as this example is, but that's how it is. Rape and abuse. So they are trying to support the rapist. And if the raped victim, raises the hand to slap, the rapist, oh no, take your hand down, how dare you, terrorist. This is what they'll do to them. So the thing with the white phosphorus here is, how comes it's not being talked about much more? The fact that they are using these weapons. And then again, you think, by who? Who's going to say something? The United States used chemical weapons in Iraq, in Al-Fallujah, that people will suffer from for generations. Who? And now Hezbollah, they are attacking every day. Okay, let's see if we have anything else before we wrap up. Jimmy Eyes, they say international community, we hear globalist elites. That's it. That is exactly it. Garf PM, Mahmoud, did you see the Global Imams Council statement on Hamas? Utterly shameful. The scholars for dollars sold out. Now we know why the Palestinians have suffered for 75 years. It's the sellouts. Yeah, some religious scholars in Islam and in the Christian world too, it's like poison. They use a distorted version of religion as a tool to poison the minds of the people. And again, that's far-reaching, by the way. That's not just to do with what's happening now. In general, they'll do that, by the way. they will distort and twist everything that leads some people to be atheist and tell you, no, I don't want to be religious. Why? Because to them, they will look at some of these religious scholars and tell you, oh, are you representing the religion? Oh, no, thank you. I don't want this religion. What kind of religion is that? And people find it difficult to differentiate between the religion. Like if we want to take an example, Islam, but it's also in with many other religions too. They will confuse the establishment with the religion. And these people, they are there to serve the one who pays them, And many of them condemning the Palestinian side. I haven't heard that one in particular, by the way. But no, they'll say that and they will entertain you with all of this unsubstantiated eschatological nonsense. It's not related to religion at all. Somehow everything will sort itself or whatever it is, so that you don't do anything. And, you know, these people can be killed and this government can kill them in peace, you know. This is what they want. So what these people want, and others like them, is for Israel to commit its crimes without a headache. They don't want a headache. They just want them to commit crimes without repercussions, without even people talking. When you think for 1 second, well, at least let people talk. Let people talk, at least. Condemn what's happening. Well, we can't do anything anyway, people. What can people do? We can just talk. And call on the government. Listen, government, can you please no, do this, do that? That's why whenever the government does something good, even if it's not like genuine or even if it's like whatever for a show, good, but continue, do more. Why? Because the people are suffering. Well, the eyes are on the people of Gaza. That's the main thing. That's what everyone should be looking at, the suffering of these people and their pain. Nothing else. But instead, no, they want to condemn anything that opposes this tragedy. And Cam, thank you so much for your super, much appreciated. And everyone else participating. Marcus, Mahmoud brother Salam, don't you think Iran wants to wait for a ceasefire agreement and then wait until Benjamin gets out from his safe house and finish his life? I think that Iran, like I said many times, they have many calculations when it comes to a retaliation on Israel. One of the biggest calculations is the fact that they know that it could lead to a much bigger ongoing conflict. And they know that's what Benjamin Netanyahu wants. However, there are many other calculations. The accuracy of the action, the fact that they wouldn't want anyone to perceive it as a call for something bigger. Although, again, you can't promise that Israel would take it that way. They already said we will react with a harsher manner or double the force. They even had people in Iran threatening them from nuclear war. They have their internal politics, internal economy to think about, their level of progression when it comes to their position in the Middle East, and the fact that they are probably the biggest strategic power in the Middle East now. The fact that they made Israel, or parts of their actions made Israel the punching bag of the Middle East. Israel no longer intimidates anyone, really. Anyone can hit them. And they have all of these calculations. And listen, if they reach a ceasefire, don't forget that these countries, including Iran, their objectives of action was to stop the war. They didn't say we're participating here to end Israel or... No, stop the war. Of course, they constantly talk about the fact that the Palestinian people need their rights and they need to freedom and equality and what have you. I mean, Iran's position is no end Zionist entity because to them it's the root cause of the problem. But if you do reach a ceasefire, then there's a probability that Iran wouldn't do anything at the time, for the time being, because to them, well, there's a de-escalation now, there's a ceasefire, and we don't want to be deemed as a side who would hinder it, if that makes sense. But I wouldn't be surprised if they would want to target Netanyahu. And we'll wrap it up with Marcus. And again, sorry, by the way, if I missed any of your comments, everyone, we usually miss some of them in the live stream, but thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. I'll have another short video for you after this live stream. Again, thanks for all of your participation. Thank you so much for everyone for your input and kind support. Thank you so much for everyone who sent super. Stephen Burrows, Dean, Baran, Dean again, Marvin, John Storm, Mr. Kana, Dennis Huggins, ×2. Thank you so much. And Cam, I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your evening or day or night, depending on where you are, in your weekend as well. And I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone.